Today we're going to look at assessments and rubrics in business education, looking at the different types and purposes of each. The first types of assessments that we're going to look at are the formal versus informal assessments. The key difference in these is whether or not the students know that they are being assessed. Assessing and grading are different. Students should always know when they are being graded, but they do not always need to know if they are being assessed. When you're assessing students, you are trying to figure out what they have learned and know. Many times you will do formal assessments, which is probably what you think of when you think of assessments. These are the tests, quizzes, papers, presentations, homework, etc. But there's another very important category of assessments, the informal assessment. This can happen during class discussions, while observing students, walking around the room, listening to students talk while they're in small groups working. It can even happen when you're having one-on-one conversations with students or when they ask you a question. Much of what we do as teachers is informal assessment. We're trying to learn how much the students are understanding the materials while they are working on it. The second comparison of assessments are the formative versus summative assessments. The big difference here is that formative assessments are meant for the teacher to understand what the students know so the teacher can determine which supports are still needed to get the student to understand the material. Formative assessments can be either formal or informal. It can be an oral question from the teacher to check a student's understanding. It could be a quiz to see if the students are understanding the materials. In a perfect world, formative assessments would not be entered into the gradebook. They are meant to help along the way to make sure students are getting the full understanding. In reality, many times students need to be encouraged to do the formative assessments so they are prepared for the summative assessments. This means to get the students to see value in them, sometimes we need to give them points in the gradebook. Many schools go by the 80-20 rule. 20% of the grade is based on formative assessments. The other 80% is based on summative assessments. Summative assessments are the assessments that show what the students know at the end of the learning. It is often a unit test, a paper, a presentation, or a project. It allows the students to show off what they've learned. The purpose of summative assessments is to allow the teacher to see the end result of what the students have learned. This is the most important part of the grade in a course. It is the end when the teachers evaluate the completion of the students' learning for that unit or the course. The last thing we're going to look at today is rubrics. We are going to compare holistic rubrics with analytical rubrics. The key difference between the two is the amount of depth that goes into the evaluation. Holistic rubrics check to see if a student can perform a skill. It is generally a checklist. Did the student complete the item? Yes or no. It is generally very quick to make and quick to use and easy to share with other teachers. And it's easy to be consistent in your grading. The disadvantage is that it does not give much feedback to the students on the quality of their work. Analytical rubrics, on the other hand, allow for more depth in your scoring. They have descriptors that put different qualities on a continuum so that it's easier to judge the overall quality of the work. These are harder to create and they take more time to use when you are evaluating the student's work. We want to use an analytical rubric when we want to evaluate the quality of the work, not just if it was completed or not. Now that you understand the importance and difference in the various assessments and rubrics, you can create the right ones for the right situations to assess your students in the best way possible.